Welcome to Pod Breaks Africa, the sweet and sour bits of passion, where we interview African podcasters sharing their experiences, including successes, challenges, and failures, providing knowledge for budding African creatives who have chosen this path and want to invest in their passion.
Okay, so in the words of Bernard Kelvin, he said, podcasting has become one of the fastest and trusted tools or channel for building and promoting brand. And you will agree with me that, well, podcasting has gone beyond just, getting your mic and talking. And distant time, it's going to become a way of life. Thank you everyone for joining us on Podbreak Africa. This is APVA, okay? In case you're just, wondering what APVA is, it is the Association of African Podcasters and Voiceover Artists, where we promote African voices to the world. And this is one place where we talk about everything that has to do with podcasting and how to go about podcasting, from experiences with people. We just like to make things easy for everyone that wants to do podcast, or you are, just in the space and you're not feeling too good about it and you don't know how to go about it. We make the journey easy, and we help you to have a soft landing. Now, this afternoon, or this evening rather, we will be discussing and talking with people that are versed in their sphere or their genre of podcasting. And we are going to be learning one or two things. So it is my pleasure to welcome Mercy Ajibade and Chulu. Good evening to you.
Hey, thank you, Felicia.
Good
Good to see you too.
evening, Mercy. Africana woman, good evening to you.
Hello. I'm excited to be here and for the conversation. So thank you for the invitation.
All right, we are so glad to have you, and we are happy that you honored our invitation. So, quick introduction of our guest. Mercy Ajibade is a recently recognized awardee of the Iconic Brand Award, and she became an awardee for the Distinctive Positive Value Award. She is a corporate event compare, voice actor, and LinkedIn revamp expert. Now, as an expert in her field, she has anchored several corporate events, and one of her superpowers is the ability to own the stage. And as a LinkedIn coach, she has taught almost 2,000 people from Cameroon, Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa about LinkedIn visibility. And as a LinkedIn revamp expert, she has single-handedly transformed several dormant LinkedIn accounts into professional and visible ones with 5-star ratings. In June 2022, she was nominated, of course, for the APVA Award, and alongside the big names in the podcast industry. And she is the host of Moments with Bam on Anchor FM and Podroom, a podcast channel where she discusses thought-provoking topics about faith, relationship, purpose, and of course, life. And then she started her own foundation named BAM Foundation, which is an organization that cares for the indigent and the people with disability. And since its inception till date, they have donated their resources to hundreds of people. And she is passionate about creativity, productivity, and of course, growth. Now, Chulu is the founder of Africana Woman, an entrepreneurial platform to help ladies who are looking to discover and brand themselves in a way that seems natural to them. She coordinates, and she is the founder of a program called Exceptional Youth Zambia. The 5 pillars she focuses on are culture and global issues, entrepreneurship, career and university guidance, service for others, among other things. Now, this profile is great enough for anyone to be a professor. And these are professors of podcasts. If there is anything like that, or in the distant future, we'll have something like that. I'm looking forward to this one, owning that space. So today on Break Africa, we will be looking at podcasting as a tool for advocacy. Now, when we talk about advocacy, it is not all the time that you see podcasting come into view. So I would like to know, Mercy, I'll start with you. Now, what is your primary objective with podcasting? Like when you started out, what was the focus?
All right, thank you so much for this question, Felicia. Okay, so I think I need to set some foundation or a foundation, and that is that it is important to know that podcasts are a great marketing tool for many reasons because they create a repetitive touch point for the listeners. So whether you're selling a specific product or using the podcast as a means of advocacy, it can work wonders for you and your listeners. So like I said earlier, people start podcasts for several reasons, but one of the major reasons is that people are enthusiastic about certain topics and they want to develop and share their knowledge to impact more people and inspire more lives. And but my own primary objective is to let people understand who they are, is to let people know how to use their voice and how to get better in their dealings with their fellow human beings. Because I understand that when you know who you are, when you understand how to use your voice, when you understand who you are, you will get better in your dealings with everyone around you, and that will make your society a better one.
Strong points. The Africana woman. What one word is your primary objective with podcasting?
Okay, so I guess it's threefold, right? So the first one, this is my personal reason, is that when I looked at education in Africa, which needs a revamp, real serious revamp, I noticed that, there wasn't really much information in the way of African women role models, right? Even if you ask somebody right now, like, can you name 5 African women role models? They'll struggle really hard. And then suddenly, then they'll go to someone like, Michelle Obama or Oprah. And you're like, no, I'm talking about African women. Our history books continually tell us about, all these great men who went to war, and it's always the women who sit at home, with their children. And it's like, are you serious? Over all these centuries, women have done nothing. So what it really boils down to is who is telling the story, right? The author of the story is the one that really determines whether that story will be told. And I think with podcasting, I saw it as a great way to introduce the world to African women who are doing amazing things out there. That said, I do believe that every single person has a story to tell. Every single person is the hero or shero of her own story, right? So in terms of, the person that's actually telling the story, there are times that uh, a lot of times we don't actually get to tell our stories, and we're kind of just holding it in. But when you're able to own your story and tell it in the way that you know it to be true, there's such a peace, and it's almost cathartic to go through that process. So I think for the person who's telling the story, I always ask them at the end, how did you feel about the interview? And they just feel, most of the time they'll say, oh, I feel light. Like, it's so good for them, and it's so good for you as an individual to really own your story. And then for the listeners, so many times, again, we're always holding things in. Things are happening to us. We think we're the only ones that are going through it. So when you're able to hear that somebody got to the other side, and first of all, you are not alone, you know what I mean? I think it gives you hope. So those are the three things.
Okay. Now, in a way, Chilo has, ventured into the second question I'm about to ask, but I'm going to ask anyway. Now, aside from helping people, realize that there are more women doing great things, helping people to realize that, you need to discover yourself, you need to use your voice. Of all the genres that are in podcasting, why did you both choose now to go into advocacy? Podcasting advocacy. What were you thinking? Africana woman, you go first, then Mercy will answer next.
Okay. I think podcasts are a beautiful way that you can be intimate with a listener, right? People feel like they know you, they get used to your personality, and it's one thing for someone to, I don't know, to just see you from afar, but with podcasting, you're actually really drawn into the content and you really feel like, oh, this is so relatable. So I find the medium itself to be something that is really that really helps to connect with the listeners and the people that I want to inspire. So I think that was probably why I decided to go in that direction um, with the work that I do. I mean, I believe that my work is purposeful. So, it doesn't really matter what medium I'm going to do it in. I'm always going to be doing this work of helping women. But I've fallen in love with podcasting, and I found that it's really effective in the way that I get to connect with the listener.
Okay, Mercy.
Oh, yes. All right. So I believe that advocacy seeks to ensure that all people in the society can have their voice, be heard on issues that are important to them, protect and promote their rights, and have their views and wishes genuinely considered when decisions are being made about their lives. So, on my podcast, I talk about overcoming fear, snapping out of depression. I make people see reasons to try again after failing so many times. I make them see reasons to be emotionally intelligent. I talk to them about how to discover who they are and what works for them as a person and as a brand. So, ultimately, I intentionally choose advocacy because I want them to see where their power lies. I want them to see how to use their voice, how to own their voice, because I strongly believe that everyone has a voice. So, and people are always excited and inspired whenever a new episode is out because they believe that it is an avenue to make them better, to become a better person for themselves and for people around them. So basically, I choose advocacy because I believe that that is where the power of people lies.
Those are strong points for both of you. Now, which brings us to the question, yeah? How has podcasting helped you, or how have you, been able to achieve, these goals that you set out for yourself when you started advocacy and podcasting? So, what were the goals that you were looking at? Was it a 5-point agenda, 10-point agenda, 2020 vision, 2030, and all of the visions? And how has podcasting helped you to achieve this? I would direct that question to you, Africana woman.
Okay. I think of the work that I do as planting seeds, right? You don't necessarily see the results straight away because a lot of the work that I do is about wellness and about about dealing with your emotions and dealing with your mental health, and those are not things that are done overnight, right? It takes time. So I know that, as long from I guess when I started, my goal was, as long as one person can hear this and be inspired, then that's a success for me, right? So I guess my validation, or the validation that I see that the work that I'm doing is working, is in the feedback that I get from the listeners. I remember I did a podcast episode around women who are not able to have children. And I got a response from this lady, and she said, "You know what? I really feel seen and heard by this discussion because I have been going through this, and not being able to talk to people around you about it is really challenging, but this really just gave me some hope, so when you get messages like that about all the different types of topics that are covered, then I know that what I'm doing is for a good purpose.
That is interesting to know. Now, moving away from all of the goals and all of the things that we've been able to achieve, with podcasting. Mercy, I would like to know, in what way or ways have creativity, influenced podcasting in Africa?
Okay, creativity has influenced podcasting in Africa in so many ways, and these are some of the ways. Number one, it has been a perfect tools that help in raising awareness and help create social real change. The second one, the second one is that it has helped creative go in depth into topics and get personal without putting their audience off. And the third one is that it has helped podcasters in crafting a unique niche, a unique concept. The fourth one is that it has helped in attracting relevant listeners who are enthusiastic about learning and relearning. And the fifth one is that it has helped in building a loyal and passionate audience because when you provide relevant content, they will find your podcast enjoyable and they will decide to stick around.
I love the last point to make it enjoyable and make people stick around. I mean, these are great points that you've made, and I would love to know, or we would love to know rather, how can African voice be sustained? What are some of the things, some of the measures that we can take by both governments, people, to see that we empower and sustain the African voice? Truly.
Wow, that's a heavy question. Um, well, I think that, there's a lot of work to be done in terms of people actually, one, understanding what, for example, what podcasting is on the continent, right? So you have, it's the podcasting industry as a whole is so young on the continent, and there's so much possibility and growth that is possible. And I think there's a lot of learning that needs to be done, learning from, for example, maybe the private sector who can be sponsors, learning from even arts councils in the respective countries to actually look at podcasting as an art form, right? As something that's creative, and to be able to bring podcasters into the fold and say, okay, the work that you're doing is making an impact in our society. And even, again, like you mentioned, with governments being able to include podcasters in different, let's say, schemes or different programs that are available. But not, because right now it's either people just don't know what podcasting is, or they kind of just think of it as like, oh, there's that little hobby, that people do. So I think there is still a lot of learning that needs to be done. But at the same time, I have a lot of hope because there are so many creatives, so many passionate people in this industry. And I think it's the passion, it's the creativity that will get us where we need to be.
Great point made there. You said the passion, the creativity, and podcasting is beyond an hobby. It is beyond that. It is a massive, tool and weapon for, brand promotion, building, you name it, every single thing. Podcasting has a way of improving on existing protocols, if there are anything like that. Anyways, so I would like to go to Mercy. What does success look like using podcasting for advocacy? I would love to know, aside from the fact that you get feedbacks and all of those things, what really does success look like, especially with advocacy and podcasting?
All right. I'd like to start with the real definition of success for me. which is the accomplishment of an aim or purpose. So, throwback to when I started my podcast channel. I mean, I want to be heard. That was one of my main goals. Like, oh, I really want to be heard, and not just to be heard. I want people to listen to me and be inspired. I want people to listen to me and discover themselves. I want people to listen to me and be healed. I want people to listen to me and grow into the full potential of who they are. So it is not just about me having a voice and using my voice. I really wanted to have an impact in people's lives. So for me, the real definition of success is when there's an accomplishment of an aim or purpose. So, and this also comes with achieving the desired visions and the desired goals. So for me, success is when people open up to me after listening to my podcast episodes and then they experience a paradigm shift. Success to me is when people reach out to me to tell me, oh, they learned something new or they understand some things better in a way because they listen to this particular episode. It also requires that people can see themselves in a very clear mirror when I talk about certain topics. And success to me is not just about people out there, it also deals with me because when I talk about certain things, I also go back to it to listen to it and it heals me as well. So success to me is all of those things.
Mm, you mentioned something that we rarely hear about. You going back to listen to your own podcast so that you yourself can heal. Now, this is a strong point I am definitely taking back with me. So, away from podcasting now, I would like to hear from both of you. Okay. What is that thing that you are so curious about that doesn't have to do with podcasting? I really want to hear this. So, I would like to hear from both of you. Africana woman, you go first.
No, I was about to say Mercy, go first.
Okay. Okay, so one thing I'm also passionate about is helping the indigent. I love people. I love when people are happy. I love when I can be of help to people financially, emotionally. So even if it's not even about money, I love it when people come to me and then I can speak to them and then they receive direction and healing. So that's one of my reasons for owning a foundation because I love to see people feel better in my own little way. So yeah,
Mm,
that's one thing I'm so passionate about.
okay.
Let's see. I think, let me see, what am I passionate about? I am passionate about being in nature and connecting with nature. I think that's very important to me.
Mm,
My space, I believe, should be a space which is a sanctuary. So I take a lot of time and effort to make my space, like comfortable, beautiful. Um, I live in a place that's got a beautiful garden and I love nature. I think when you're able to be, like for me who's a creative, if I can be in a space where it's peaceful, then my creativity flows there.
mm. Okay, so I would love to ask, you know, like it's all good that we are talking about the good part of podcasting. We are talking about the smooth ride, all of the juicy stories, but then you both will agree with me that there are times when you feel like, okay, this is not working, or you just, put something out there and it's not working the way you envisioned it in your head. How do you, as individuals, as podcasters, deal with these setbacks when it comes to podcasting and advocacy? Because if you're going to use, the two in order for you to work out, your passion and your vision, of course, there are challenges that you meet, along the way. So how did you cope? What are some of the challenges you experienced? And how did you handle them? Are there ones that stood out for you? We would really love to learn from your experiences. So, since Mercy started first, Africana woman, you go first, then Mercy will answer next.
I think in many ways, my podcasting journey has been driven by an entrepreneurial mindset. And I think as an entrepreneur, you have to always try, right? Not everything is going to work out. Yes, you have the frustrations, but I think it's okay to allow yourself to be frustrated and say, I'm so mad that, that I'm disappointed, I'm sad, I'm unhappy, all emotions, whatever comes to you, that did not work out. But at the same time, you don't sit in that frustration. Give yourself a timeline, like a deadline for, okay, I'm only going to be in this, in these emotions for like what, a day or something. And then afterwards, you want to then look at, okay, maybe where could I have done better? Or maybe is there another idea I can test? I think it's always about trying to test and see what can work, what can be better, but you have to always keep trying. There's nothing like, oh, I'm just gonna stop. That's not an option. So yeah, I think just be resilient. It's like I said, it's okay to be frustrated, but don't sit there and then think that that's the end. Be frustrated, let it go, move on.
That's great. Mercy.
Okay, so when I first started, I started as an imperfect person. I'm still a work in progress, right? But it has been better. It has been like it has been like an up and down journey for me. So when I first started, I started as a very timid person. Yes, I love to talk to people, but then this is a different space entirely. And I remember that my first few episodes, when I send it to people, the link, when I send it to people, they'll be like, you're not talking loudly, or your breath is I mean, we can hear your breath in this podcast episode, or this and this and that. I mean, there are several ways where people can actually slow you down instead of saying, oh, this is nice, but you can be better. So when I think about some of those things at the early stage of my podcasting stuff, I sometimes feel like, oh, maybe this thing is not for me. Maybe I'm not really good for this thing. Maybe I just need to take a break for a while. But then I just said, to do what? At some point I was like, no way, you know what? I'm going to keep doing this until I become better. And that's because I understand that whatever you do consistently, you become absolutely good at it. And then people are not really passionate about your perfection. They care more about your readiness. And there is this quote that I love so much that says that your imposter syndrome will fade away when you realize how average your heroes are. So when I listen to some podcasts, I'll always feel like, all these people are not like alpha and omega now. I can also be like these people. I can also invest in myself. I can also become better. I can also do this. So those things at the early stage were like, if I had allowed them, it would have been a setback for me. You understand? But I just said, okay, no way, I'm not going to do this. Another thing is that the low turnout of listeners. When I first started, sometimes I would have like 5, 10, 15. I'll be like, people don't want to listen to me or what's happening. But at some point, I realized that, listen, it is not about having 10,000 people listen to your podcast. As long as one person can listen and it can bless their life, then it's fine. As long as 5 people can listen and it can change their minds, it can give them a renewal of mind and make them see themselves in your mirror, then it's fine by you. So a lot of things. So but I believe that nobody can limit you unless you give them the power to. So if you do not give anybody the power to limit you, absolutely nobody can limit you. So that's just it for me.
Yeah, if you don't give people the power to limit you, that means that nobody can limit you. That's interesting to know. I would love to know what your favorite productivity arc is for creating content that relates to society. Is this the retelling? Is it experiences? Is it your personal life issues? How do spark your productivity for creating content? Africana woman.
How do I spark my productivity for creating content? Hmm. Um, wow. Well, I think for starters, I think the world inspires me. So I naturally, wherever I am, I'm always looking for stories, right? So, I could have gone to another town. I could be at a networking event. I could have just met somebody in a store and, we're having a conversation. And I hear the stories and I'm like, wow, that would be an amazing story to tell. So I invite people in the most random places because of just having a conversation, just being brave enough to ask them, what is your story, and I think in, in sparking my productivity. I think one other thing I'll say is that for me with podcasting, I have made it something um, that is a priority to me. So, I think the same way that, you brush your teeth every day and you and you bath every day, hopefully, you know, that's the same way that I say I am going to show up every week and do a podcast. I am going to release a podcast on Saturday. So I'm just committed. Yeah.
So commitment is top on your list. All right, it's great to know. So looking at life, sometimes you plan to stay forever, and well, life has its own packages ready for us, but then we pray for good things to happen to us. But then what is that thing that you want to be remembered for as a voice for the society? Like when they talk about podcasting and advocacy, what is that thing that you want to be, remembered for or as? Mercy.
Okay, so I believe that people, as everyone has their voice. However, we choose what to use our voice for. Some people use their voice to pull other people's down, to make them feel bad about themselves, and some people use their voice to inspire lives, to make people feel better, and to bring people into their full potential. So, for me, I want to be remembered that I used my voice to inspire lives and bring people into their full potential. That's just it. So when people listen to me, I want them to be inspired, to be motivated, to become better, to do better, to live better, and then to grow in the understanding of who they are, not who people say they are. So I want them to know themselves by themselves. I want them to know who they are and not just live by anybody's standards or the world standards. So I want to use my voice to bring people into that understanding.
All right, that's great. African woman.
Very similar, hey. I want people to remember me as someone who would not allow you to live a mediocre life. I would, I want people to live a life that they absolutely love and, and know that it's okay to live that lifestyle, the one that you actually dream about and not just be living but actually thriving, so yeah, I want people to remember me and say, oh, Chulu always asked us to dream big, to just start and to evolve. That's what I want.
That's currently I am a young person. I love podcasting and I love advocacy, and I want to know what are the things that I need to look out for you know as a newbie in the world of podcasting and advocacy at the same time. So what are some of the things, or some of the things, yeah, that I need to look out for, I need to do what I start doing. Mercy, please go.
Can you please repeat what you said? I think the line was breaking at some point.
Okay, I said as a young person, I love podcasting, I love advocacy, and I want to
Mm.
use this together. What are some of the things that I need to settle in my mind before setting out? What are some of the tips that you can give to help, such a person, be that person that they want to be using podcasting?
Okay. The first thing is that understand your strengths. Understand your strengths and craft a niche for yourself. So because everybody is going in this path does not mean that you should also go in that path. So understand your strengths, understand your strong point, understand where you're very good at. Do you understand? And craft a niche for yourself in that area. Another thing is that understand who your audiences are. So understand the kind of audience that you have. Now, if you're talking about how to find, for example, how to find the one or how to find the right boyfriend or girlfriend, People who are married, people in their 30s and their 40s and their 50s, don't need those kind of content. I mean, they're already married, they already know what's up. So that means your targeted audience is for people in their teens and people in their early 20s, and probably a little bit of people in their early 30s. So discover who your audience are. So know who you're speaking with, craft a niche for yourself, know who you're speaking with. Don't just go with everybody's flow. Be consistent, and like Africana woman said, be commitment. So one thing that makes all the difference is the commitment and consistency. Trust me, it is not always going to be easy, but then when you're consistent and your commitment, everything will make sense. So put this in your mind. I mean, your audience, craft a niche for yourself, discover your strong points, be committed, and be consistent. And lastly, believe in yourself. Believe that you can talk to people and change their lives. Believe that you can make people become a better version of themselves. Believe that you can do this thing, because if you do not believe, nothing will change. Because I always have issues with young podcasters. I mean, I'm also young, but then new podcasters come to me and say, Bam, I don't think this is cool enough. I think there are loopholes here. And I tell them, listen, it doesn't really matter. What matters is what you're saying. Is what you're saying making sense? As long as it is making sense, then don't stop. Continue to do whatever you're doing, and it's going to be okay at the end.
Mm, you said a lot, but I would love to know if Africana woman has something to, you know, add from our end.
Yeah, I think that was great advice. What I would add to it is that, in as much as, podcasting may seem lonely, you're doing it by yourself, you're recording in your room or whatever, in your closet. I don't think you have to do podcasting alone. Please don't do it alone. Because when you have a community, they're going to help you on those days when you feel like giving up. They'll encourage you when you feel like you don't have certain skills. They will say, okay, let's teach you, let me help you, let me I can refer you, and you you can learn from this person. So my advice to somebody who wants to start podcasting is find a community, right? A community like APVA. If your country has a community, find it, join it, be active, participate. And I think that will make your podcast last, or go for the length. And yeah, I think what Mercy said was spot on, but just don't do podcasting alone. You don't have to.
Don't do podcasting alone. I love that part that you hammered on, because sometimes you feel like you're the only one in the world going through whatever it is that you're going through. Not until you meet a community of people and then you discover that, oh, I'm not alone in this boat. You've done this, you've done that, and these are some of the tips that you've been able to use to help yourself. Now, what are some of the challenges that are in advocacy, and how can we use podcasting to solve some of them? Africana woman, you go first.
I think some of the challenges is, as I mentioned earlier, with advocacy, is that you don't necessarily see the results straight away. I think when you look at, even if we're looking at the medium and you look at the most popular podcasts that are out there, right? It's either like, really sensationalist, I don't want to say gossip, but those ones that talk about pop culture and things like that, or religious podcasts. Those are usually ranked on top, right? So when you come with a topic, and you're either saying something like, "Oh, I'm advocating for mental health," or things like that. Sometimes people are shy, or they feel like they they're not ready to totally engage with the content, because then they think, oh, then that's what this person is going to be talking about, so sometimes adopting people to actually listen to your content can be a struggle with advocacy. because it's just not as, let's say, sexy in inverted commas as other genres, right? I would say that with advocacy, it's one of those things that it takes many people for us to see, proper change or significant change. And I think that if you're going to have a podcast that is under advocacy, you have to be a patient person, because it's not going to happen overnight, right? You're not going to see the huge results that you want overnight. But when you're consistent, when you are persistent, you will see it. And I would also say that try and partner with other people, other brands that are even not just in podcasting, but outside of that. And I think it will really help spread the message that you're trying to put out in the world. That's what I'll say for now.
Okay, that is a great answer. So my final question before I allow people listening to us on the space to actually ask their question, because I can see the Gist O'Clock podcast dropping a message, a question, but I don't really understand. But then I'll give you the avenue to ask your question properly. So with podcasting and advocacy, what has been your relationship with people? Has it changed from when you started, to these are people coming forward more open with you? Are people trusting you more? What is it like for both of you? But I'd love Mercy to start first.
Okay, for me, because sometimes when I do my podcast, I talk from my personal experience. I talk from my personal story because I want people when people listen to you. Okay, when let me put it this way: when people look at you and then they feel like, oh, you have everything all figured out for you, but then when they see another aspect of you that shows what you've dealt with, what your weakness are, they feel drawn to you because they feel like, oh, she's in our shoes as well. Oh, she can relate. Oh, she understands this thing. I remember I was talking to someone recently, and then I was telling the person about my past experiences with failure, and at some point, it paused and he said, "So you failed so many times?" And and it was like, "But people will not understand." Yes, people will not understand because sometimes we don't share these things. But when we share these things, it will make people feel so safe with us. So with me, my relationship with people has become better because when they listen, they understand that I've been in their shoes as well. I've dealt with this thing, and to a point, I have the solution, and then they feel like, okay, we can talk to this person, okay, we can converse with this person, okay, we can share whatever we are going through as well with this person. And we believe that even if she does not give us all the solutions, she can help us as little as it is. So yes, it has made my relationship with people smoother and better and better. And like I said, I also draw strength from it. So when I draw strength from it, I can um, pour that strength into people as well. And when I pour that strength into people as well, they are strengthened, I'm happy, and they are happy.
You're happy, they're happy, and everybody's happy. African woman.
Um, I think the I think the people that knew me before the podcast have really become to understand who I have become, because over time you change, you learn new things, so you evolve. And I think the relationships with people who knew me before have become more in depth, with deeper understanding of each other. But I must say, like with my podcast, I think one of the great things is that I talk to a lot of people. I interview a lot of people, and I have been so privileged to meet people through the podcast who have now become friends, or even just to be able to network and then be connected to other people. I like the difference between when I started the podcast and now, and how amazing and how big my network is really significant. So yeah.
Oh, okay, that's great to know. So, I don't know if some of our listeners have questions, but just o'clock podcast, can you just unmute your mic and ask your question? Because I'm trying to understand what your question is from the comments, but I really don't understand.
Hi, Felicia. They were asking about communities. I think Africana Woman actually tweeted a response, and we've also shared some of the communities that are present.
Oh,
The G O'Clock podcast, yes, they asked if there were communities for podcasters.
okay, all right, great to know. I don't know if we have any other question from anybody. This is the time to ask your question.
Okay, but I just wanted to jump on the question about are there communities. Even if you don't find a community straight away, you can create your own. Okay, I'll give an example of myself. When I started podcasting, there wasn't things like APVA and all these types of things where you're like, oh, there's where I can see, different podcasters that I can be in a community with. So I became very intentional and I decided to create a community. And I just researched some podcasters, reached out to them and said, hey, do you want to do you want to meet and stuff? And we did. And then we decided that we would have it as an ongoing thing and we support each other even to date. So even if what I'm saying is, even if you don't see a community straight away in your immediate space, you can create one.
Okay, all right. Hannah, Baba, I saw you unmuting your mics like you have a question.
Yes, hello. I'm listening from California in the United States. My name is Hannah Baba. I'm from Sudan, but we are in the diaspora here. I come from podcasting from radio journalism here in the U.S. And I'm connecting with many podcasters in Sudan, trying to kind of grow the podcasting space and feeling that it just comes natural to us. We are oral storytellers. And so this idea of having podcasts is not foreign, is not too far from being a reality. Um, my question is, being in diaspora, our realities are different but similar in many ways. Um, and I'm trying to this might be a little bit off. I've been enjoying the conversation about advocacy, and I believe podcasting, especially my branch of podcasting is journalism, and so there's a lot of soft advocacy that happens in journalism through audio. So I've been enjoying that conversation. I guess my question to all of you is, um, how what kind of support or not help, I hate the word help, but just like support can diaspora African podcasters provide to podcasters on the continent? Because I've been in sessions and training sessions. We do a lot of training where it feels there's a disconnect there between kind of what we teach and the realities, right? I go to Sudan and I say, well, to make this, we do storytelling podcasts, this kind of documentary style, BBC style, documentary style podcasting. And so, the podcast is called The Stoop. Sorry, I didn't mention that. But it feels like when I go to these trainings and kind of explain and teach about how to create a documentary style podcast or a storytelling podcast with like sound rich storytelling and sound design and all of this, there's always a question of, well, that's all fine and dandy theoretically, but sometimes that's not attainable. Um, and so you feel foreign, right? And I think this is a bigger conversation about diaspora versus being there. So if anybody has thoughts or tips on how diaspora African podcasters can connect better or support podcasters on the continent, that would be great. I'm also excited that I'm coming to the Africa Media Festival and Africa Podcast Festival in Nairobi in February, where we're going to be doing a lot of this kind of training. But really, I feel like we have a lot of work to do in understanding the needs and understanding what people want. Again, I'm sorry if this is kind of veering away a little bit from the topic, but we do work with a nonprofit, and we're trying to grow the African podcast world. So thank you very much. If anybody has advice, that would be amazing. Otherwise, it was wonderful hearing from all of you, and I hope to be able to meet some of you soon.
Thank you, Anna.
Okay. I would say something. Hi, Hannah. It's nice to hear your question and thoughts. I think just like you said, in terms of how you support someone, it's really hard for us here to say this is how you should support them. I think how you support them is by asking them, what is it that you need, right? I think first of all, one of the things when people, always ask me, oh, how do I start a podcast? Oh, I don't have this. I don't have the mics. I don't have all of this kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, but what do you have? Start from there. Start from what you have, right? And then we can grow and expand and see how we can get better at how you can get better at in your podcasting journey. But at least start from where you are. Like, what is in your hand? You've got a phone, you can do a podcast, you know what I mean? So I think when it comes to supporting people, it's really about asking them, okay, where do you need support? Do you need skills in editing or whatever it is? But you have to just be able to look at what are their resources, and then how can you be creative with the resources that they have? Yeah.
Okay, I think I would love to say something as well. First of all, I would like to give you a shout out, Anna. I mean, you've been doing an amazing. Can anyone hear me? Hello, can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mercy. Please go ahead.
Okay, right. Thank you. So, like I said, I really want to give you a
Yes,
shout
please.
out, Anna, because you've been well. Yes, I personally, I really respect people who go into all these documentary things because it is not an easy thing. So I really give you the kudos and everything. I mean, it requires creativity and in-depth knowledge. So for you to connect better with people, first of all, I believe it is not bad if you are the only person that is supporting a cause. It is not bad. So, but then I think it is nice to connect with people more, and I think that's one thing you're so passionate about. So for me, I feel like to connect more with people, give them what they want first, and bring them into the understanding of what you have. So make your research and get to see what they love to listen to. It may not be in form of documentaries, it may be in form of storytelling, it may be in form of few things. As long as you can learn it, now use that as a bait to get their attention and then sustain it by bringing in what you know as well. So that way, when you give them that first, they will give you the attention and then they will be able to connect better with you. But if you're coming to them from an aspect that is so strange to them, they may be finding it very hard to connect with you and connect with what you're saying. So use what they know first as a bait, then sustain it with what you know, and then you guys can flow with that. And yes, do not be discouraged if you are the only one who is passionate about a particular thing. I mean, at the long run, you find people with like minds who also support you.
Thank you so much, Mercy. Hi, Anna. APVA here. I wanted to sort of reach out and also share with you rather that communities like APVA, communities like Ninja Pod Hub, Z Pod Hub are actually open to collaboration, to partnership, and it's usually just a DM away. I don't know, African woman, if you can, confirm what I'm saying. And I wanted to say that we are always open to working with the diaspora. In fact, we are looking for ways to really connect with the diaspora so we can curate content, produce resources, initiatives and programs and offerings that would help, strengthen the African audio industry and really transform it into and transform these skills into viable businesses. So beyond these Twitter spaces, if you're open, it would be great if we could connect and chat about how we can work together and really, really connect with the diaspora.
Yep,
I love
I
it. Thank
agree.
you.
Sorry, I did not get that.
No, I said I agree, in terms of, tapping into where the podcasters already are. So the communities that exist, and they they know like what's on the ground. They know what their communities need the most, and they'll be able to say, okay, here's what is the reality, and here's the opportunities for partnership. And yeah, like Bidami said, it's just a DM away, a message away.
Right. So I think we've lost our host as well. Maybe she's having network issues, but I think we're also done. The Gist podcast. I don't know if you have anything to say. We have like 4 minutes left to the end of this discussion, and then we can call it a day. Welcome back, Felicia.
Okay. Good evening. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. First of all, I would like to say I'm the only man in the house. Okay, so podcast and advocacy. That's I actually listened halfway through because I just joined. I joined halfway through anyway. Podcast and advocacy is quite an interesting thing to say because um, recently I've noticed that we are not having much of the advocacy in podcasting, or rather, we are having a soft advocacy, which some of us just chip in into our episodes. I'll put it that way. But anyway, I believe as we grow, we would also understand that we need to advocate more for certain things, especially as Africans. We need to advocate more for certain things. Like here in Nigeria, which currently we are in the process of the election and all that. So these are periods where we advocate for different things. But that aside, I would like to ask. I love the fact that APVA said that they're open for partnership and all that. That's beautiful, and I believe every podcaster that wants to grow should tap into partnership and all that because I believe we all create a home. So that aside, also I would love to ask how especially the podcasters here in India, how do you guys cope with the network, especially when you have guests you want to bring and you can't you have to do it via Telegram or via call or any other platform. This it's becoming quite tough because there are these glitches and all that. Is there any platform that you know can can carry guests? Is there any platform that isn't so strenuous that once once the network is not as strong as it's not 100%, it's not going to like scatter and all that? Is there?
So one thing that I do is I have a backup of a backup of a backup. So I'll have like the Wi-Fi, and then if that starts acting up, I hotspot from my phone from one network, and then if that one's not working, then I use another network. So always just having a backup, I think, is important when it comes to your network, right?
Sorry,
Um,
who's speaking? Because my network is having issues, so I can't see who's speaking.
it's Africana woman.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Um, and then I think for me, I started with my interviews. I started on Instagram Live, and I just didn't like the content, the quality rather. So I decided that as much as I enjoyed the interaction like we have here, I would rather have the quality preserved. So I just do the interviews as a one-on-one situation, right? So I have been using Zoom for the last 2 years, and I know I can clean it up how I need to. If I hear that there's like there's a distortion or anything like that, I even stop the conversation and then we'll wait, or whatever. But at least it gives us the flexibility, whereas something like this with Twitter Spaces, it's like if there's a mistake, there's a mistake, and you can't really stop and say, okay, ask the question again. So I personally prefer something like Zoom, where I have a bit more control if there was an issue.
Thank you, Africana woman. Felicia, before you come in, I wanted to share with the Gist podcast that Zoom is actually a very good option. And this is Africa. So there will always be situations beyond our control as a result of network. And like Africana woman mentioned, with Zoom, you can control, what's happening. And there are two more tools off the top of my head that I can also recommend. One is Telegram. I think T Code, our creative partner, uses Telegram for his podcast, and I kind of like the quality I also get when I listen to his podcast. And there is the option of Zencaster. Zencaster actually allows you to edit, your audio and your guest audio separately if you'd prefer, and that gives you much more control, right? So Felicia, over to you.
All right, so that is why you should belong to, an association of podcasters. They actually have a way of bailing you out of some of those things. And you can also check, our official social media and those other officials. You will always get tips that would be useful and handy with your podcasting journey. Now, since we are, 2 minutes behind schedule, I would love for Africana woman to quickly give us, something to take home with, and also share how we can get to her, like social media handles and things like that.
Um, you know what? I think with anything that you do, you should have fun, right? Don't do it out of like pressure, obligation or anything like that, but it should be something that really comes from your heart. And I think that is something that will allow you to do it for a longer time, because it's actually something you're passionate about, right? Where you can find me, Africana Woman. So my handle here on Twitter is Africana Woman. On Instagram, you can also find Africana Woman. And then the website, surprise, surprise, africanawoman.com. Thanks.
Mercy,
Yes.
please, your
Okay.
last word. Find you on social media.
All right. Okay, so I'd like to say that understand that you have a voice, know that you are the difference, and own that voice. Don't be discouraged, be committed, be consistent, and believe in yourself. Believe that you can achieve anything that you put your mind into. So you can connect with me on Facebook, LinkedIn, with the name Messi Ajibade, on Twitter to Messi Ajibade, on Instagram at I am underscore bam1, at I am underscore bam1. So that's just it. Thank you very much for having me tonight.
All right, thank you so much, Africana woman. Thank you so much, Mercy, for speaking to us. I always say it is a wonderful time when you meet with other people to share their journey and you learn and know that, okay, this situation or this feeling, you're not alone. You have other people feeling the same way and how to come out of it. Remember that you can be the part of the community APVA. We are people that love helping others with their podcasting journey. We give you support, we give you that moral support, and we give you all of the necessary things that you need to have in landing when it comes to podcasting. You have a challenge, you're looking forward to solving something, you're in a fix. There's always somebody that knows something about what you are going through. And like that Nigerian thing that we always know, somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that is going through something, there is always a connect for you with APVA, and that is what we are here to do. So you can connect with us on our social media and do at APVA Official. That is where you can find us. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to every single person that joined us. We love you so much. Thank you for doing this with us, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. Visit apva.africa to learn more about the Association of African Podcasters and Voice Artists.